over in Iran, lawmakers have decided that they are going to launch a new currency due to the high inflation levels of the current Iranian rial, which of course has been just totally crushed due to all the things like the ongoing sanctions and being heavily hit by the Mexican beer crisis and of course crash in the oil markets. All this stuff has come together to just savage the rial. Now, while the official exchange rate is 42,000 rial for $1, the black market price is 156,000 per dollar. Basically, what we're looking at is an out-of-control death spiral for the Iranian fiat nightmare. So in response to this, the government has decided to launch a new currency called the Toman. The big innovation of this new currency? They're going to remove 4 zeros from the notes. Yep, you heard that right. When one currency fails, just launch a new one, but with less zeros this time. It's way more serious that way, honestly. I wish I could make this stuff up, but reality, it's always stranger than fiction. This is like comedic gold. Thanks, Iranian government, for that. That's good times. Anyway, all of these paper-backed currencies, they're backed by faith. They're destined for the rubbish bin of history. It's a bad economic model to base your currency on. Now, over in Lebanon, the local fiat currency has also been pounded into oblivion, as we've been covering here on the channel over the last few months. And the protesters even decided to hold a nice little funeral for the Lebanese pound, inspired by the antics of the Ghanaian dancing pallbearers. Probably more ceremony than the Lebanese pound actually deserves, but definitely a nice wicked lash of satire from the protesters in Lebanon. And then over in Argentina, as the debt crisis worsens, locals are increasingly fleeing into Bitcoin, which is definitely something I approve of. Argentina, oh man, it is essentially going to go bankrupt very, very soon. And Argentina is expected to default on its foreign debt for the 9th time. This is a deadly combination of a rapidly falling GDP, crumbling wages, along with rising unemployment, topped off the good little dash of hyperinflation, all served on a bed of global pandemic, fueling one of the worst economic events of our lifetime. This has basically destroyed the economy of Argentina, and of course the peso is going right down with it. Analysts are saying this will create the worst crisis that Argentina has ever seen. We need to order up those Ghanaian guys to come and do a little funeral for the Argentine peso. Seems like we have another death of fiat coming. But jokes aside, these stories, honestly, they're so crushing. Regular, hard-working people who just want to be safe and happy, they're crushed time and time again by these rapacious international bankers and the corrupt politicians who serve them. They rob people's life savings. They destroy entire livelihoods. It's a sick system. But any Argentine who has bought Bitcoin, they have actually been able to evade all of the government's draconian capital controls, and of course to be able to preserve their wealth in their hands. It is thus unsurprising that volumes on Argentine Bitcoin exchanges continue to soar upwards. And finally for today, over in the United States, the dollar faces continued pressure. So the US Treasury has just announced that it will be borrowing $3 trillion. Throw some more money on the barbecue, guys. Just to cover the second quarter of this year, actually. Inevitably, more trillions will be needed for quarter 3 and for quarter 4. Wow. Obviously, most of this money will end up getting sucked up by big corporations. Wall Street will, of course, get its share of the pie. It always does. They're very hungry over on Wall Street. And the banks, oh, they'll take a nice big old chunk of that too for doing basically nothing. By the way, $3 trillion is nearly 6 times the last record quarter, which was $530 billion. That quarter, by the way, was during the height of the 2008 financial crisis. What a mess. What a mess all these currencies are. The deficit in the US is going to skyrocket. The debt is growing at an unbelievable rate, as well as the servicing of that debt. At what point do we start having serious discussions about hyperinflation hitting the world's biggest economy? At what point does the discussion of a US default actually start to happen? How long before they just to take the dollar out back and shoot it and put it out of its misery. And then they can launch a new dollar with fewer zeros, maybe. Now look, don't be fooled into thinking that hyperinflation and bankruptcy are impossible for a country like the USA. Argentina used to be a very strong economy, and then it wasn't very quickly. Anything is possible. No fiat currency is truly safe. Every one of those currencies is on a trajectory to zero. Money backed by faith in a government, that's a broken concept. And every new dollar printed is basically a new dollar spent on advertising Bitcoin. I guess we should thank them.